Right, hey guys, how we doing? So back on another video from Alexander's. Oh, and guess what? Look what I got! Volume 33 and 34 of the Hunter x Hunter manga. So I'm going to read these soon. But then I'm still 10 chapters behind. Spoil it for so I'm not spoiled on the Crollo video. But this video is cool because someone made a valid point. Because I really enjoyed the King Guard video. They were like, oh well, why don't you just watch the Shaiapouf one afterwards? I'm like, oh, makes sense. So yeah, it was such an interesting character. He was so obsessed with like the king, and like obviously it was built in to defend the king, but the things he did and the way he went about it was just so interesting. And like, especially like in the end where he's the king's lost his memory and that, and you're like, oh, is he gonna get away with it? Is he gonna do it? And then yeah. Anyway, I really like these videos from Alexander's. I apologise, my cold's still not gone. I'm a bit all over the place at the moment as well with my head. Like there's something in these cold and flu tablets that's making me like, I'm still drinking energy drinks to like stay awake. And but anyway, enough of me. We want some Hunter x Hunter stuff. So this is Alexander's one of anime's greatest villains, Shaiapouf.
ユーピーいかがなされましたかプーフはそうお前はプーフだ
Yes, he is.
世の名前は何という恐れながら申し上げます王は王です
And have no other name, yeah.
でもなく唯一無二の存在今は様々なまがいものがその名を無断で使っていますが全て排除抹殺いたします王といえば世界中の誰もがたった一人の存在を思い浮かべるようにそれはただの前提であろうが王は称号は所詮冠で名前ではないユーピーはどうだ私には2が勝ちすぎる問題到底答えを持ち得ること叶いませぬ人
What's going on here? Why are we watching this?
ご自身の気持ちが一番大事でございます王ご自身が最もふさわしいと思われる名を付けられるのがよろしいかと
まあよいわ It's summed up with this one moment. Meruem, upon learning the concept and importance of names, asks his closest confidants, his royal guard, to tell him what his is. The respective answers are a microcosm of each character's objective flaw as a royal guard.
Nice.
Pito's insistence on the king's feelings show an adherence to empathy, which ends up profoundly characterizing her arc. Yuppie avoids answering, saying it is not in his place to ponder such lofty ideals.
Yeah.
This gives a little inclination to his predilection for duty, which extrapolates to his wholehearted display of honor during the palace invasion. But the third guard's answer is slightly more impactful. Shaiapouf, unaware of Meruem's growing humanity and yearning for identity, says something very indicative, that his name is King.
Yeah.
A name synonymous with his fate and who he was born to become.
Yeah, he's like, come on, there's
With
nothing
no
else. He
thoughts
is
spared
everything.
And no understanding of Meruem's reasons behind the question, Pouf shows a lack of awareness of the king's feelings and is very clearly fixated on and loyal to his idea of Meruem, but not Meruem himself.
Yeah, not his actual person.
It is an exaggerated dedication to an idealized concept, not a person. And before things spiral out of control, and the story's events demonstrate this as forcefully as ever, it is clearly hinted at in one of the quietest moments. This little seed of madness that was destined to lead to catastrophe.
Yeah.
Shaiapouf is a brilliant, one-of-a-kind character.
It really stands
He's as
out.
true of a villain as the Chimera Ant arc had. A royal guard whose unwinding, poetic downfall allowed the other narrative elements to flourish as beautifully as they did.
Yeah.
While he may not be as well regarded as the series' most loved villains, partly due to the frankly stupid notion that well-written characters cannot be extremely unlikable ones, he sure as hell should be, because he is comfortably written with a similar level of artistry. In an arc where human nature is put under intense scrutiny, he's an extreme representation of what humans will do for love and existence.
If he wasn't hateable, then he wouldn't be written correctly. Functionally, he is one of the most important characters when it came to shifting the tone in the arc, with his dark,
So
otherworldly mystique and nobility adding an air of elegance that had been absent in the series up until his introduction. And this increased sophistication was vital for creating the ideal atmosphere to introduce such intricate themes later on. But apart from that, Pouf's biggest strengths are in his characterization. Along with being an encapsulation of human expression, Pouf is a beautifully conceived contradiction,
Very
an
flamboyant.
artful paradox. Like the other royal guards, he has an ironic, tragic flaw rooted in humanity that prevents him from being the perfect guard by the Queen's standards. But the nature of his flaw means that one could argue that it isn't really a flaw at all, and this is part of what makes him a more complex case than the other two.
Right.
While Pito's human trait was empathy and Yuppie's was honor,
Yeah.
Pouf's was something else. We'll dive deeper into these dynamics shortly, but the irony of the situation is that he is serving the king in a near-perfect way. The only problem is that he is serving the king that he has conceived in his mind.
In his head, yeah, it's not like what
Mid-
is actually who he
It's
is.
an error in his programming. And what becomes clear as he delves further and further into exquisite madness is that it is impossible for him to fix this.
It
To
just
abandon
more and
this
more
small
gets away
fixation
from
would
him.
be to abandon his nature entirely, and that is not possible. But it must be stressed that he's a man of duality. Because of his nature, every act of selfishness had an element of selflessness behind it.
Yeah, of course, it did,
Every
didn't
time
it?
he
Yeah.
acted out of his own interest, he simultaneously acted out of loyalty to Meruem.
Yeah.
Pouf's yearning for
It was never really
purpose
for
and his
himself.
altruistic love
It was
are
for his belief.
intertwined, completely dependent on one another, and this is very important. Many tend to view Pouf's human flaw as an exaggerated, pathological loyalty, and while it is true that his error manifests in this way, the root cause is idealization. Pouf's obsessive devotion stems from his inability to see worth in anything other than his idea of Meruem's success.
Yep.
This was his only desire, the only thing that he significantly valued, and this is key. It is established very early on that the royal guards have the duty of serving Meruem ingrained in their minds, and their perceived self-worth begins and ends with his protection and success.
That's it, yeah.
This is what defines them, the literal only thing that they strive for in life. It's a concept that we can relate to, yet not fully understand, because in the royal guards it is one-dimensional and accentuated to the fullest.
Max.
Essentially, they believe that they have no worth other than their duty. But there is a silver lining in Pito and Yuppie's programming flaws. Pito grew to care for Meruem's feelings, so she could take solace in the fact that while he may not be following his destined path, he had found something that he cared for,
Yeah.
something that made him happy. In turn, this made her happy, so him not becoming the optimal king did not bother her.
No, it wasn't really mad. It's
Also,
like she
had
genuinely
begun
cared
to
for the
form a
character
genuine
of that was
capacity
king.
for empathy, feeling truly sorry for Gon due to Kite's death.
Yep.
Her fear of losing Meruem made her conceptualize and understand how others care for their loved ones, which just slightly hints at the idea that she had a potential for making
She
connections and developing other
could've,
relationships
yeah.
aside from Meruem. On the other hand, Yuppie's lack of individualism made him a man of pure duty. However, upon his final battle, like so many of the other characters in the arc, Yuppie developed. Through his bouts with Shoot,
Oh,
Knuckle,
so
Killua,
cool.
Melioron, and Morel, his sense of honor sprouted. He learned to value the conviction of others and respect pure commitment, even if it came from an opposing side.
Mm-hmm.
He grew so much that he let sworn enemies of his king live out of respect,
Which was mentioned in
when
the
it
other
would have
video,
taken him just a few seconds to end it.
He could have
Ironically,
killed
for a
them,
character
couldn't he?
whose duty personified, Yuppie finds himself to be the guard with a value most detached from his original role. And in examining this, it becomes crystal clear as to why these two didn't oppose Komugi to the extreme that Pouf did. They still sought purpose, but due to Pito and Yuppie's human characteristics, they did not stake as much value on Meruem's objective success as Pouf did. Because deep within them, they had different values, other methods of fulfillment, alternate ways of interacting with the world.
Yuppie は自身を重ねピトーの機微が理解できた。プフがピトーだけでなく ユピーにも
Pouf was
訪れて
fearful
い
of
る
the
であろう
changes.
わ
Yeah.
ずかな変化に恐れを抱いていること。
Some would argue that due to this, they may have even had the remote potential to build a life without Meruem in it.
Quite
It's certainly
possibly.
an unlikely possibility.
Pouf,
But
though.
unfortunately for Pouf, while empathy and
No
honor
way.
provide alternate ways of finding value in life other than through Meruem's success, his very specific idealization gave him no alternative values. He was all in for what he perceived the king to be and what he was supposed to become, and this was truly his only purpose in life. And when people are faced with losing their purpose, they can do unspeakable things.
They do drastic
Multiply this tenfold
things.
due to Pouf's unique characterization and situation, and we get his madness. This downward
He was
spiral.
really spiraling into a crazy little situation, wasn't he? Oh, that was
ユピーと
cool.
の経緯からプフとも同様に理解し合えるかもしれない。
No chance.
そんなナックルの淡い期待は
Visualization
この
of his
村に打
rage.
ち砕かれた。
When Pito tries to save Komugi's life, Pouf is naturally unable to come to grips with it because he doesn't understand what the king values. Or rather, he cannot approve of what
can't.
the king values.
Yeah.
Only what he values in the king. Komugi detracts from that, and in doing so, her existence denies Pouf's reason for living.
私には確証がありません。ピトーの変化が果たして本当に王のためになるのか。
When this focal point threatened to be taken away, Pouf found himself at serious risk of being cut off from anything in life worth living for due to the one-dimensionality of his endeavors. His devotion is a double-edged sword because his
Yeah.
duty is everything to him. It is the reason for his supreme strength, but as a result, it is also the reason that his purpose is so breakable.
Can you
Without
imagine
extra dimensions
if
to
Meruem
one's
just
life,
like
one's perception of
decided
their
he didn't want to be
existence
the
becomes
king?
As such, for Shaiapouf, when coming to terms with failure
Like,
to
to
protect
tell
the king,
Pouf, like,
or
straight
more
up, just like-
importantly, the king straying from his path, he is faced with the possibility of nothingness.
Yeah.
And
He
as
wouldn't
an
have
individual
anything.
so full of passion and life, Pouf found this concept reprehensible. The circumstances were forcing a person characterized by art and laughter and tears in extremes to suddenly lose all of his ties to what makes existence worthwhile. From total life to an existential death. From everything to zero.
Nothing.
It's forcing a man of pure idealism to submit to nihilism, and it understandably leads to an extreme dissonance within him. Pouf would not stand for this. Instead, he rejects it and does whatever he can to maintain life's
He
value.
really does.
This puts his drastic mood swings into perspective. He's beautiful and full of love when he has his purpose, and violent, conniving, and ugly when things threaten to be taken away. His artful characterization and Togashi's stylization dress him up, but in essence, this is true self-defense and really quite primitive when it comes right down to it. And he was like this from the very beginning.
Yeah.
In contrast to the insanity that occurs later on, Pouf is introduced to the story in an understated and subtle way. Eccentric and artistic as he is, in the early parts of his life, he acts relatively normal, with very little to hint at the inner turmoil that would soon bubble over. But this makes complete sense. His king had been born and was acting as a king should,
So he had no
his
reason to-
purpose was
yeah.
being fulfilled. Everything was going according to plan, so he was content. But this elegant, soft-spoken demeanor slowly begins to crack, giving
That was
off
the
an
best way to
impression
do
of a
it.
false, deteriorating persona when his back is against the wall.
でも、はあ、答え出ない問いに溺れて悩む自分に酔っていたい。それが思考の甘い。
Oh.
Shaiapouf is a self-proclaimed thinker. He ponders, he debates, he philosophizes, he indulges in the inner workings of his own mind, and he finds it exquisite.
I like how he came across as very calm and collective, and then
While
it's a
it can be a place of great
slow
escape, internal expression, and enlightenment, it can also be a place where someone drowns in their thoughts in an extremely negative way. And due to his cerebral nature, we see both sides of this in Pouf, accentuated by the introduction of a certain young woman. This cracking of his psyche begins to take place, insecurity takes root, and little hints of anxiety begin gnawing at him.
Just little
As he
nibbles.
sees Meruem, the supposedly completely ruthless king, start to form a relationship with Komugi.
This is unheard of.
この女危険
Yep.
だこのままだと厄介な存在になる
But despite Pouf beginning to lose his grip here, this stretch of his arc is characterized by his restraint. His sense of duty overpowers any underlying thoughts and prevents him from giving in to his impulses, because things are not yet serious or severe enough to force him into any sort of action.
Yeah.
After Meruem rips off his arm as a show of resolve,
Yeah.
Pouf offers to die if his king does not consider his compromise of Pito healing his arm while he plays to be desirable. For him, if his king is unsatisfied with his service, he does not deserve to live. However, this eventually changes as his perception of an inconsistency between what the king wants and what is good for him grows in substance, and as a result, his goal threatens to slip from his grasp. Understandably, his characterization begins to shift as this happens.
Really
He
does,
doesn't
yeah.
kill Komugi when the stakes are lower because the king must become a supreme being, the best at everything. Pouf cannot leave him a loser at Gungi, so until Meruem wins a match, Komugi must stay alive.
Yeah.
However, due to Pouf's earlier fears, that thinking becomes dismissed and priorities begin to change as the king continues to humanize. And this is when Pouf begins to lose himself in his own mind.
Absolutely
His intense
goes
love for the
crazy.
king dovetailing with his self-criticism, his over-reliance, his idealization, and his off-the-wall personality. While Pouf is the one who witnessed most of Meruem's interactions with Komugi and would thus be the one to see things the clearest, he is simultaneously someone who cannot see things clearly because of how personal a concept the king's success is to him.
It's impossible.
正直に言おう私は恐れているのだ今王に芽生えているものがこの上なく不安で恐ろしくて
The humanity.
No wonder he's afraid. Not only does he believe that a loved one is making a fatal error, but his life purpose is slipping away. And as someone with programmed humanity within him, he is beginning to act in self-defense to preserve this, because humans need it. When Pouf comes to this realization, it causes immense internal agony that I don't think can be overstated. Think of your ultimate goal in life, the one thing that you want to achieve more than anything else. Now, take away any other fallback plan and secondary goal you have. Eliminate everything
Just
in your
make
life
that
that doesn't
the
pertain to
thing.
this one thing. Next, try to imagine your desire for this success amplified many times over.
Right.
And lastly,
It's
imagine that due to forces beyond your control and
everything.
understanding, that goal is slowly slipping from your grasp, and you are unable to do anything to prevent what you perceive as
Oh,
failure.
drive
when
you
it comes to the
insane.
only reason for existence. Even though he is literally helpless in this situation, he chastises himself so harshly, consciously for failing Meruem, and subconsciously for failing himself.
Feeling like he's not doing what he's meant to,
His
but then
extreme
he
contemplation
can't
mixed
do
with his
it.
divine loyalty and narrow-mindedness is something that causes Pouf to be
Slowly
extremely
realizing-
hard on himself. Failure
Wait,
in any
his
form
existence
is something
is
that he
just
absolutely
none.
punishes himself for internally, because this is his nature. And when you take this and everything about the character into consideration, his behaviors make a great deal of sense. No wonder he moans in pleasure when he ends up being the reason that the king is resurrected. He could not have asked for a better, more fulfilling task. It is beyond orgasmic, beyond ecstasy. It is the greatest thing that Pouf could have asked for and felt in that very moment.
Yep. It was funny that, like, so over the top.
He is fulfilling
But it
his
needed to
ultimate
be.
purpose, and the impact is accentuated because it initially seemed as though Meruem had forgotten about Komugi, and subsequently, Pouf decides to dispose of her before his king has
Yeah,
a chance
it's
to
like,
find
go!
an irreplaceable
Go!
person that he could not seem to put his finger on. He is not oblivious to the king's intentions and needs here, and he is burdened by the knowledge that he is trying to eliminate something very important to
him,
Meruem.
yeah.
And this guilt eats away at him. But in Pouf's eyes, Meruem not remembering the thing that was holding him back is too good of an offer to pass up. Pouf's strict
important.
loyalty and purpose overpower his sentiment, as the king remains in the dark. But of course, this wasn't to last.
No.
Meruem's love and humanity would not allow itself to be stifled, and it blossomed in him again and again. Tonally, the final acts of the Chimera Ant arc are a palpable wind-down. Gon has self-destructed,
Oh my god.
Morel, Shoot, and Nav have retreated,
They're all gone.
Pito dies and Yuppie soon after,
Oh.
Netero is gone, and the king is poisoned. The fighting is done. There is a steady decline in action, as if most of the characters involved had realized that this fight was over, except Meruem, who races against time, determined to find that one thing that he couldn't remember, and Pouf, who tries to prevent this.
Yeah.
It's saddening for Pouf in concept, due to the air of inevitability that seems to surround Meruem's motivations to find Komugi. And as the story seemed to project,
Oh.
Meruem does find the answer he's looking for in Welthin.
Yeah.
This is when we see the profound love and desperation that characterizes
This was
every
so tense.
fiber of Pouf's being. It's an extremely pitiable state that Pouf finds himself in. Bloody, weak, kneeling in the dirt, being overtaken by poison, and yet he still remains firm in his resolve,
Yeah.
trying his absolute utmost to hide Komugi from Meruem. It's clearer than ever here that he would do, and indeed did, everything and anything for his king. Willing to die, willing
Yeah,
to
even
lie,
though he was dying,
willing
he
to
was like,
disobey
I am
his
still
programming because of
sticking
his
with this.
programming. Because he truly loved Meruem enough to fruitlessly attempt to defy what seemed to be destiny despite everything he was suffering through. And for a character that often seems alien, this gets to the heart of a very personal theme. That he is just doing his best to save someone he cares for.
Yeah.
This is the perfect demonstration of his devotion, struggling desperately for a sliver of hope, for the smallest chance that Welthin might not say the word that would make Pouf's nightmares
Yeah.
a reality.
It was like, whoa.
And there is that ever-present selfish element as well. Despite knowing that he was going to die shortly, he wants to make his existence worth something. It's simultaneously a literal fight for his
Otherwise,
life's meaning, and a
what
fight
do
to
I live
preserve
for?
what he believes is Meruem's purpose. And he does not succeed.
Mm-mm. Komugi.
But Pouf comes to a realization. After all of his efforts fail, he finally accepts his fate and bows down to allow humanity to run its course. In the last possible moment, he finally sees what he had been unable to previously. That Meruem would only consider his existence worthwhile if he could be with the person he loved. That his idea of Meruem was not actually Meruem. That he was the
Well,
only
something
thing
he
standing
perceived
between
himself,
his
yeah.
king and fulfillment. Knowing this, Pouf cannot bring himself to give in to his nature. He had been programmed to help Meruem onto a different path, but he also loved him. And now, there is a reversal as sentiment wins over duty. He is finally able to care for Meruem the individual. In his final moments, he transcends his programming and actually makes a breakthrough by accepting Komugi. But inevitably, it was far too late.
恐れた以上に彼女を何なりと処罰
言わずとも伝わっておろう。我らは痛々しい。咎などない。
叶うはずなどない
There's nothing he can do but cry in agony.
Yeah.
And to rub salt in an already gaping wound, Pouf is present to witness the king's complete embrace of humanity as Meruem spares, validates, and shows appreciation for those he was supposed to rule over and dominate.
Yeah.
人として生きるがよい。
Like, you can live it as a human. It's like, wow.
Shortly after, the poison runs its course, and Pouf dies an unceremonious death, a juxtaposition to his noble, aristocratic demeanor. Face in the dirt, tears in his eyes, bloodied and broken and alone. His only purpose for living ripped away from him.
Gone. wings ripped off.
In actuality, this is the only way this could have ended for him. It is appropriately ironic that a very human fixation ended up being what caused Pouf's death. The hopeless contradiction, the poetic madman, the paradox, who was unable to realize that he drove himself mad and became enveloped
He
in
really
sorrow
did,
because the
didn't
king
he?
was becoming more and more human, failed to realize that his own humanity was the cause for that madness. While he did all of these things to sabotage him, and while his devotion did have roots in self-preservation, Pouf loved Meruem just as much as the other guards. His backstabbing, his manipulations, his desperation, it was all out of a
All for
fierce
him.
loyalty, his way of keeping the king from harm. In a way, his hurtful intent is as faithful a display of loyalty as Killua shows to Gon. He just had his own way of showing it.
Yeah.
忠誠と護衛軍の分裂は
Necessarily contradictory.
必ずしも矛盾しないってこと。王が大事にしている人間がいる。だからその人を守る。
They're all
だ
doing
からその人を
their own
殺す
different thing they believe will
どち
defend the king.
His legacy would seem to be insubstantial, except for ultimately being a nuisance to everyone around him for reasons beyond his control. But his short life was far from pointless. It was a mad, flawed, lyrical demonstration of passion, expression, and existence, one that has true roots in simply living and loving. In the end, Meruem acknowledged and very much appreciated his loyalty, and I think that that would have been enough for Pouf.
Yeah.
He wished for his king's well-being and success above all else, and found his self-worth intertwined with this. He just believed that this well-being and success would come from a life path opposite to what Meruem was on, and he did all he could to correct this. Equal parts selfishness and selflessness, a contradiction characteristic of the man himself. And in this vein, Pouf is Hunter x Hunter's most profound display of the duality of the human condition.
Yeah.
Humanity is his saving grace and his downfall.
And his downfall, yeah.
Without it, he wouldn't be able to feel as passionately as he does, but he also wouldn't have had to experience such excruciating suffering. Was it really worth it for him in the end? Love, loyalty, mankind's nature, dualism. The ideas that are addressed through Pouf's story are synonymous with the themes of the arc itself, and that is part of what makes him so
Excuse me.
significant. But to talk about such a fascinating character in such a mechanical way seems inappropriate, given the reasons why he truly shines. Pouf is an essential character study because he demonstrates the beauty and tragedy of love and purpose, the necessity of flexibility, and how one little inconsistency in one's psyche can lead to unhinged insanity.
Yep.
Dramatic,
Craziness.
loud, and over the top as he is, his lasting impact ends up being one that is actually quite melancholic and poignant. He was a man who was destined to fail. Humanity always showed itself in these chimera ants, and it was a matter of when, not if, for Meruem too. Because of this, it was inevitable that the king would stray and strongly diverge from his optimal path, and that fact in itself made Pouf's downfall a certainty. This doesn't make him any less despicable, and it doesn't make the things he did okay.
No.
But it does make him a character of profound substance and emotional resonance. All he wanted for
Killed
his king was
people.
success, and all he wanted for himself was something to live for. And he never really got a chance. For one of Hunter x Hunter's craziest characters, he is as much of a realistic depiction of the extremes, ugliness, and beauty of the human condition as anything else.
Can't argue with that one.
Many thanks for watching.
Wow.
お前はいつも深読みしすぎなんだよ。ええ、それだけのこと。
Damn. Wow, that was such a good video. That was such a really good in-depth look at Pouf's character. It made me feel a bit sad. Yeah, his beliefs drove him crazy, especially as he slowly saw his purpose in life slowly slipping away realising that it's like, what am I here for then? But then yeah, it wasn't like the person that King was, it was the idea of the King that he so wanted to protect. And yeah, sorry, I won't babble on too long. I must sound so boring with this cold. Yeah, cool. I'm going to catch up with the manga. I want to do the Chrollo video, but I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm going to read through these, but then apparently I'm still 10 chapters behind, so I'll read these, and then some of you are asking me to do like discussion videos or what, and like what I think of the chapters and that, and what I'm thinking I might do is, I might read volume 33, and then do a little discussion piece on it. I don't know, because it's a bit different to what I normally do, and I don't want it to get in the way of everything else that people are used to watching on here, so just let me know in the comments below. I might do something with that. And yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Excuse me. Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. And I'll see you guys. Yes, all of you guys. Next time.